Welcome, everyone. It's great to be here with you. We're fortunate to have Hanne Ørstavik here with us from Italy to speak about her novel Ti Amo, recently translated to English by Martin Atkin. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Center for Study of Europe and AGNI, for making this event possible. And we will open to audience questions at the end, so please be curious. And this is being recorded for YouTube. Hanne Ørstavik was born in northern Norway, later moving to Oslo when she was 16, and published her first novel, Cut, in 1994. She has since established herself as one of the most admired and prominent writers in contemporary Norwegian fiction. Her book, Love, was recognized in 2006 as one of the 25 best novels in the last 25 years, and was a finalist for the 2018 National Book Award for Translated Literature. Ti Amo is based on her experience of losing her husband. Do you want to read it first, maybe in English, the first page or two, and then in Norwegian?
I would rather like to do it the other way around. But do anyone have the English version?
I have some.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Perfect. Thank you.
Jeg elsker deg. Vi sier det til hverandre hele tiden. Vi sier det I stedet for å si noe annet. Hva skulle det andre ha vært? Du, jeg holder på å dø. Vi, ikke gå fra meg. Jeg vet ikke hva jeg skal gjøre. Før, jeg vet ikke hva jeg skal gjøre uten deg. Når du ikke her mer. Nå, jeg vet ikke hva jeg skal gjøre med disse dagene, denne tiden, hvor døden det mest synlige I alle ting. Jeg elsker deg. I love you. We say it to each other all the time. We say it instead of saying something else. What would that something else be? You, I'm dying. Us, don't leave me. Me, I don't know what to do. Before, I don't know what I'll do without you when you're not here anymore. Now, I don't know what to do with these days, all this time in which death is the most obvious of all things. I love you. You say it at night when you wake up in pain or between dreams and reach out for me. I say it to you when my hand finds your skull, which has become small and round in my palm, know that your hair is almost gone. Or when I stroke you gently to get you to turn over and stop snoring. I love you. Once I would reach out in the night to touch your skin, to place my hand on your back, your stomach, your thigh, anywhere at all, and there'd be connection, contact. And in that feeling of skin and warmth, something small and without language, something perhaps undeveloped in me, a newborn part, could sink down to sense the base of night, return home or arrive. I love you. But you are no longer in your body. I don't know where you are. Awash in morphine, you drift in and out of sleep or languor, and we do not talk about death. I love you, you say to me instead, and reach out for me from the bed on which you lie through the days, fully dressed, writing on your phone, writing a novel on that little screen, 2 or 3 lines at a time before you drift into sleep again. And I let go of the door frame and step towards you and take your hand and look at you and say, I love you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this book read as deeply personal and super honest. I'm wondering what it's been like to share that experience with the world as a work of art.
It's been a great relief, I think. Well, when I started to write it, it was, I never, I guess I will just take you all into the start of it. It's called a novel, and we could discuss whatever kind of book it is. Personally, I think of it as a document. It's a document, and it's a text, and I don't care. You can call it whatever you want, but it's a text I wrote when my husband, my Italian husband, was very sick. He was going to die from cancer, and it was January 2020, and he'd been sick already for 1.5 years. And the 30th of December, we had been to the hospital for a chemo, and when he was outside of the room doing something, the doctors came in, and I asked them, please, I need to know how much longer does he have, because I need to know. He did not want to hear anything about death, anything. But I said to the doctors, I need to know. And they said maximum a year, probably half a year, but probably less. And that to know that, to kind of finally kind of hear it so clearly, together with another experience that we will talk about afterwards. Yeah, that's also in this text, made it. We came home from the hospital, and about 10 days later, I was kind of exploding of this knowing, to know that my big love was going to die, and we could not talk about it. I mean, where was I going? Where were I going? To go with that pain, with that? I had nowhere to go except writing. So writing was a way to create a space for me to be and to be honest, and to finally say all the things that I could not say to him. So I started to write it. I started to write it, and I wrote it in 10 days, and it's all like, it just came out, and it's the way it is. It just came out, and there it was, in a way. Not in a way, it was like, there it was. But it just, that's, so your question is really beautiful, because I started to write it really for myself. I did not set down, oh no, I will really write a novel about my husband dying. Never. It was not at all. It was, I need to be in this situation in writing, because if not, I will go crazy. So I just started to write, and then after 2 or 3 lines, I realized, no, I'm writing literature. This is not a diary. This is not for myself. This is not. I'm writing, and that was such a relief to actually be writing, that it was not for me anymore, because that is the feeling of writing literature, is that I'm doing it for myself, but I'm not doing it for my private self. I'm doing it for something in myself that is kind of unknown to myself. So and you're nodding, and that is wonderful, because I don't really know how to say it. But that was how it was, and it was such a relief to be in all these questions, but being in them with the rigor and concentration of writing literature, because that is another state of being. It's so concentrated, and it's so not me. It's me and not me. And so when you said how was it to kind of share it as an art, so that's what I meant with it being a big relief, because I think that is the big difference between. There are so many differences between the writing the private writing in a diary, the private writing, you know, scribble something down, and when you really write something that I just feel is literature, is that it is possible to share it. It's shareable. Literature is shareable. It's not private anymore. And for me, the limit between, because in Norway, we have this big, if it's private or personal, which I think is such a meaningless, it's so meaningless, that distinction. To me, it's private if it's not shareable. If it's shareable, you can share everything. Nothing is kind of outside art, but it has to be shareable. And I think that is kind of the writing, so the relief is it to become shareable. And yeah.
Well, and in that you say too that, well, in the book you also said it, but that you felt the writing almost left you respectfully while you were going through this experience with your husband, that you felt the writing sort of retreated maybe, and in the end that you retreat to the writing, that it's almost sentient, this...
what does that mean, sentient?
Like an entity, a living, thinking being, that the writing itself is sort of a person that's helping you through this. Does that connect?
No, it's not really. It's more like a place. I think it's more like a place where I could be, like a place of existence. That and to me, I think all my novels are a place of existence where I can for a while stay. Just kind of, It's like you can go somewhere and you can be there with whatever is difficult, I think, and not kind of to go there to find a solution, just to have a place to be with whatever is going on. So this being quality of literature, I think that is the most important for me with literature, is this quality of something being opened, so that finally I can, this feeling of breathing out. It's like this, okay, I can take it, it's painful, but it's somewhere to be with it. But if you don't have a place to be with it, at least for me, then you can't, it's too much, and so it was more like having a place to be with it. And now I feel that I'm kind of losing your question.
I have a question about what you're talking about, though, because you write too that most of all of your books start with a place, and through this one you refer to, there are many places. It starts in Milan, but it travels physically. You also describe your husband as a place, and his eyes as a place, and his mind as a place. You describe your book as a place, and the book he's writing as a place. So I wonder if you were to say pick a place where this book started, would it be Milan, or would it be a more abstract place in him?
That's a really good question. No, well, I think it's really kind of very practical. I just sat there in my writing room and I started to write. So, no, I think it's a very good question, but it's also a bit abstract, because it is. I think it's really kind of very practical, but it's really what I'm really touched about in what you say is about him being a place. And I think that isn't that love? When you find someone you can look, oh, this all makes me cry. You can look into those eyes and you really feel that this is where I want to be. And that is kind of to look into those eyes. And what kind of place is that? What is that? What is happening when you really meet someone you love and you can look into those eyes and the world becomes rich and dense and...
I mean, I also think you think of a place as a constant variable rather than you talk about his eyes as a place and watching them change when he gets ill. And so seeing that shift, a sort of solid ground maybe, seeing that shift, how that could be very emotional and really touching in your work.
What do you mean losing that place? Because I lost
That
it.
too.
Yeah.
But while he was ill, you said, maybe it was the emotion, but the expression in his eyes changing. You said, I once knew those eyes, something along those lines, where there's a shift happening.
I don't really know if I really got your question, but I think I don't really know what to say, but isn't that also... No, I don't really... No. Say something else.
So, well, you said you were talking earlier about your conversations with the doctors and how you were just looking for something to grasp onto. From a writing perspective, I think about your texts before this one were so based in the physicality, so based in the physical description.
Are you talking about Roman Milano, or what are you talking about?
Pastor and Love.
Yeah, the words you have been reading in English. Yes.
And here, it felt like the book was grasping for that physicality somewhere, grasping for information and knowledge. And in that moment, asking the doctors just for information, you said something like, even if it was when he would die, I just wanted to know something. I'm curious about if that relationship at that point felt like a dishonesty to you. You write here, I have a compulsion for truth that feels like my very life force itself. And if that ultimate honesty, if the writing maybe left because that honesty wasn't there in the conversation about death.
No. I think we talking about two types of writing. I said what I meant in this text when I say that the writing kind of left me with respect was more like the novel writing, because the classical novel writing that I've always been doing is more kind of going into a place and doing kind of research into a place, and that was not relevant anymore. My love was dying. Life was, there was no research to do. I just wanted to be present with him. So that kind of left me. But I feel so stupid. It's just like, maybe it's I won't blame my jet lag, but it feels very good to be able to do that right now, because I don't remember what you asked. What did you ask? Say it again.
More related to if the compulsion for honesty,
yeah,
how that affects your writing.
Yes, well, I think that is at the core of writing this whole book, because I could not talk to him about that, and that was really what was happening between us. Like I also write in the text, this kind of waking up in the morning and seeing every single second I looked at him, I knew that he was going to die. I looked at him and I could feel my love for him, and I could feel that inside every second was, this second is it's now and it's leaving us, and time is leaving us, and you are leaving me, and I'm losing you. Now we are together, but I am going to lose you. And every time I looked at him, it was so painful because losing him was inside looking at him. And then of course you can say that we are all going to lose each other, and death is inside every relationship. And we can die crossing the street. We can all die in this very moment. We never know, but knowing was so, I could not kind of go to the cinema and not think of it. So it was so present. So this novel was my way of dealing with that truth. So I had to have somewhere to go, because I could not. I really felt that it was not. He was the one who was ill. It was his body. It was his death. Who was I to force upon him my need for truth? So I felt really that I had to respect his choice, and that was really hard. But writing this book, I did this for me. This was my place for my truth. And then the book held my hand. I can, okay, this is my truth. I have my book. I have a place for my book, and then I can be with him and respect him not wanting to know. So yes.
Before you were a writer, you expressed interest in wanting to be a psychologist. Is that still an interest, and does it lend to the work?
Well, to be honest, no, not at all. If you study psychology, what does that really teach you about? It doesn't teach you anything. I did 1 year of psychology in the university in Oslo, and you read all these American textbooks that are big like this and thick like that, and they're all about all these stupid experiments they do with students. They don't teach you anything about life. And I've written a novel who's really kind of making a little fun of that. The novel I wrote after This Is Love, the novel I wrote after, which is about a psychology student, and she doesn't have a clue at all in life, but she has all the theories inside. So that is a question people often make. I've studied more sociology than I ever studied psychology, for instance, but nobody ever asks me about sociology. So it's really funny how kind of people think that, and also kind of people think that university makes you wise. It doesn't. It's all up to you. What do you do with the things you? How do you deal with things in life in a way? So no. But it's interesting to have read.
Well, you quoted a psychiatrist and a psychoanalyst, Gustav Jung, in there, and Birgitta Trotzig.
Birgitta Trotzig, yes.
So.
But she's a writer. She's not a psychologist.
Yeah. So were there other figures at the time that you were reading or thinking about that helped you through this experience, or some that you turned to in grief?
When you say that, I really want to kind of do this. No, nothing helps. You can't read anything that helps in that moment. There's nothing that helps. The only thing I really did was that I had, and that is really strange. I'm so grateful. Now, this is a meeting about literature, but we're talking about life, and I love that. If literature can't be there in life, what are we doing with it? So that's very good. But what the only thing I really, and he was ill in Italy, and it was the 3rd and 4th year of me living in Italy, so my Italian was still kind of not that good, and I had no social network, so I didn't have friends, so I was totally alone with him, and we lived in central Milan, and there's this long canal going, because it's totally flat, and there's all these Roman waterways into Milan. There are still some of the canals are open, and that is almost one of the few ways that you can go for a walk, because Milan is so crowded and people and traffic and everything. And out there, after 20 minutes along that canal, there is a little church from the 13th century, and it's so strange because it's always empty. And I would go to that church, and it was, you know, these things, I would do it without knowing. I just had the need to go for that walk, and I would go to that church, and I would go inside, and it's a really small church called San Cristoforo, and there are kind of some old frescoes, and there's this tacky loop playing Gregorian songs in there, and I would sit down, and I would always start to cry. And it was so because I didn't know I needed to cry before I got into that church and sat down, and I would cry. And it was such a relief to have a place to go and cry. And I've been thinking about that too. I mean, so maybe. So I think that was that was my place, to go with my sorrow and my rage and my loneliness, to go to that church, to have a place. But I didn't know it. It was really strange, because sometimes I would kind of walk there and you know, Hanne, now you're going there again and you're always crying, but today, and then I would go in and just like, oh. Yeah, so yeah.
So the last interview that I saw of you, that you had not had a relationship with the translator, Martin Atkin. Has that changed? Or for this book, was it
What do you mean that? What do you mean that I
you
haven't
said
had a relationship?
That you didn't speak to him about it, or that you weren't.
What do you mean?
For love, it said that you didn't speak to him about the translation. Or that you
what
weren't
should I
that
say?
involved in the translation.
No,
I was curious if it was different for this text, or if.
No. And that is, I'm really kind of. Martin Aitken is a wonderful translator, and I'm so grateful for his work, and he is so sensitive. But I really kind of, he is doing a translation in a way. He's kind of writing this book in English. So I need to have faith in him, and also give him the freedom to do that. Because if I would kind of interfere, it doesn't feel right. And of course, every time he has finished he's done 3 translations of my books to English, and every time he's finished, he will always, you know, send me an email with some kind of questions. But they're often, and that is the funny thing, to have those questions from translators, because they're always very practical. They're always, how does that look? Or what color is it? Or what way are they? Is that? It's so, and it's so wonderful, because because I understand how he's working. He has to see it. He has to make it, incorporate it, to be able to give it a language that is real for him in English. And that is so beautiful, and that gives me so much confidence that he's really doing it the best he can. Yes, so it's not that we're not talking together. It's just that I feel that is a respectful way to let him do his work. Yeah.
I'm curious about the brevity. I didn't know that you wrote the book in 10 days. What was that like? Was it just every day, all day work?
No, it was like an avalanche. It was like but it's like that every time I write it feels very kind of it's very demanding. I feel that the book is kind of it's my master. So it's okay. Come on, write. So it's not, and that is a very good thing. It's like it's not. Especially because I didn't know that I wrote a book even. I just knew that I wrote a text that was a literary text. And when it was finished, I sent it straight away to my Norwegian editor, and then I just said, and it was like 50 pages in my Word document with 1.5 line distance. So it was a small document, and I just sent it to her and I said, I don't know what I've written, but do you want to read it? And after 2 hours, she wrote me back. It's a book, Hanne. Yes. And I didn't really know. So, but I'm really so grateful for it because yeah, what I said. It helped me during those last 6 months. I wrote it in January and he died in June. And it was such a relief during those months to know that the text was there. Also, in a way, it kind of made me relax and stay with him because I didn't kind of have to kind of remember how it all was, because it was in the text. So it was just like, I can return to that text afterwards. Now I want to stay with Luigi. Let us be together. And the text is there, and it will always be there. So that will be afterwards. So, yeah.
You talk about that he returned to visual art while he was ill. I'm wondering, you talked about he painted a lot of animals at first, but I'm wondering if you still have those paintings and if you have a favorite.
Yes, I have a favorite. I write about it in the book.
The portrait, the self-portrait?
Yes, I will tell you if you haven't read the novel. Luigi, my husband, he was my Italian publisher. I met him in Norway at a literary festival where actually Jill was also there. I don't remember Jill. I only remember Luigi. It's so interesting. Jill was there, just like. And we met there, but so he was a publisher, and I was not published in Italy before. So he bought my book that day. We met, and half a year later I moved to live with him in Milan. But he has never studied. He never studied literature. It was a family, a big kind of publishing company, or how do you say it?
Publishing house.
A house, yes, with different kind of publishing houses under this umbrella, and it was a thing that his father and another guy. So like Italy family. So he was kind of the son of the publisher. So he took over. But as a young student, he studied art. He wanted to be an artist. He wanted to paint. Also, but then life took over, and he was a good publisher. He was a very good publisher. But when he met me, and also, isn't that also lovely with love? When you choose someone, and you don't. I think you choose them also because. Or something, and you choose them because you see a potential to grow or to expand. So together with this person, I can be more of what I am in a way. And I think for him to be with me, I think it also had to do with him longing to go back to paint in some way, to kind of to return to his core. to his core love for his own creative. I don't like the word creative. Anyway, to his own. But then, and then he started to paint again. We hadn't painted for 20 years, but he started to paint again when we were together. I was just kind of, take back that apartment you have rented out. Ask him to move out in Italy. No, I can't do that. You can ask him. You've been so kind. Maybe he will move. And then he moved out, and then I started to paint. But then Corona came, and he was ill, and so he was suddenly able to be painting all day, for days and days and days, even though he was so sick and chemo and everything. But he would be there and paint for 9 hours anyway. And that was beautiful. I was going to tell about my favorite painting because I was so and I'm writing about this in the novel. Maybe it's stupid just to tell about all these things because it's not very literary, and I write so much better about them in the novel that I can tell about them. Is it boring, or should I just talk? Yeah, is it okay? Because it's better in the book. But anyway, I was, I was talking with Jill also. This kind of, when you love someone who is an artist in some way, it's beautiful because you have the connection with that people in the love meeting, but then you also have the entrance to the inner world of the other through the art of the other. And I was so curious to kind of see him. Who are you? What kind of pictures do you really make? Who are you in your pictures? And it was so hard to see him in those first pictures of those great lions. And I was just like, Luigi, where are you? I'm looking for you. Where are you? And I'm so curious. I wish we had talked more about that, or that we could talk about it now. Or that is really some of the things I really miss that I'm still curious about. But then he wrote, he painted he painted different kind of series. But then suddenly he made a series of auto, how do you say that, self-portraits.
Self-portrait.
And I love them because finally he was working with himself and the image of himself and showing me the contradictions that he somehow had inside. And these he made 5 of, and I inherited all these paintings, so I have all of them, and then I shared with his kids. Yeah, so I wanted also them, they should also, so we split them up. I could never live in a house with all the walls with all his painting anyway, so it was kind of normal and good to do it that way, I found. But the self-portraits are beautiful in the way that they all the 5 of them is one screen with his kind of presence with his face, his upper body, and then on all of them he would add a small frame on the side that would kind of be like. Of course, you could decide, whatever who's looking at it can decide what is that little frame on the side. But the picture that I really love is one where he's sitting, and it's kind of sad and it's kind of pink and green, and there's a shadow, there's a dark shadow of a bird behind it, and it's really dark. That shadow is so dark. But the beauty of the picture is that in the little frame that is on the side, there is the bird that's giving the shade, and oh, it makes me cry. Then that bird is so bright and light and filled with kind of, it's just flying. But the shade that's kind of falling behind him is so dark. And the way I see see these paintings with this kind of extra little frame. It's like this kind of, because you could think of that frame, you could take it away, and what would the portrait be without? So you can kind of see it with the extra, and you can kind of think it without it. So it's kind of life possibility. So that's how I interpret those paintings. But it's like there is a life possibility, but it could also not have been there. So it's kind of this, and also this challenge. Is this to be included or not? Or will it forever be an appendix or something extra? Or is it a part of the I, of who I am or not? So I found, to me, those pictures are really the ones that I feel closest, that I kind of see him the most. But that is also interesting. What is another person? Because a lot of the pictures he painted afterwards were kind of, he would take photos of strangers, like in the metro or anywhere. He would just take photos of strangers. In the beginning, I was so jealous. I thought he was taking pictures of, people that he really thought were beautiful. And I was, why? Wow, it was so painful. What is he going to do with those photos? Is he looking at them at night? And then I realized that he was doing it for his painting, and I find that is also kind of, to see unknown sides of the person you love, and I realized that in a way that was his way of showing love to the world. He would paint those unknown persons with so much love in those paintings, but they were strangers, and that was also him. So yes, yeah.
It might be a good point to open to audience questions, if there are any.
And just comments.
Yes, and comments.
I'd love to hear you talk more about that whole idea of something being or not being shareable, because of course there's the first thing we think of, you write something down that you want to hold for yourself, so it's not shareable in that sense. But I don't think that's what you meant, because you said after a few lines you already knew. You could have written anything private later, but already somehow you had come to the sense that you were, and so I feel like you're getting at something about the way that the sentences feel when you already know that you're not doing something private, right? So it's shareable in the sense that it is written to be shared, and that's something about the stance of the writing, right? That your stance as you write it. So could you talk about what that feeling is and how, what it means that some things written are shareable and some things not?
It's a very, that's really interesting. I think it also has to do with, for it, then it has to be I think what I also mean is that it has to be able to be, it has to be written in a way so that it can be understandable for someone else or visible for someone else. Like when I'm writing about the series, when it's hard to know if I'm going to say we or they when they are in Venice, when they were in Venice and they were running to the hospital and to kind of, because they thought that it's some emergency, and at the hospital it's really the most beautiful hospital in the world in Venice. So if you ever want to get ill there. It's beautiful. Anyway, we were running there and to be writing about that, if it had been just for me, there would have been so many things I could exclude, but to make it shareable, the text has to show it so that someone who wasn't there can see it, can be there. So just to write about how it looks, in a way, very kind of easy things. But yes, I think like yes, like that.
But why wouldn't something private be shareable too? Like if you have a shorthand for yourself, that could be interesting to someone.
It's interesting. I think that is what the new novel that I'm writing, and I've been talking to Jill about that a lot. And I think in some parts I have kind of written it in a way that is a little private, because people can't come in and share what is really happening in these situations. And Ingrid, my Norwegian editor, has said to me several times, like, Hanne, you have to let us in. And I think that it's about that. You have to let us in. If it's too private, someone else doesn't really have access to the emotion or the situation, because the text doesn't show it in a way. It's really hard to kind of explain. I wish I could give you a better example.
And do you feel she's right when Ingrid says that?
Yes, she's totally right, and I understand so much what she means. Yes. Yes.
Do you end up writing towards, when you said that you write towards like an unknown part of yourself, is there ever anyone that you envision writing towards that it is public, for the public in some sense?
What do you mean?
I mean, like, if you're in the zone where you know that it's going to be read by people beyond yourself, then I just want to hear you talk more about the unknown part of yourself that you're writing towards, or how you envision that. If there are people that you actually know who are real, who you write towards or not.
No, I don't never think I do that. I think I'm really grateful that I know that Ingrid, my Norwegian editor, will read it. So I feel really safe. I feel safe that whenever I will let anyone read it, it will be her. She will read it first, and I feel safe that she is solidarian with my project, so that she will never kind of criticize it and wanting me to write something that is not what I want. So she's totally on my side. But at the same time, she is not kind. I mean, she and that would be not kind to me to be kind. I mean, she is really kind of demanding. This doesn't work. Like for the new novel, it's totally, this will be a wonderful novel, Hanne, but you have to let us in. This is closed. Huh? Until you do that, this novel it doesn't work until you let us in. And I've known exactly what she means, and I've been waiting, but now finally I've come to a place in life where I'm able to let. So that's what I'm talking to Jill all this time these days. Huh? I'm finally at the point where I can write the love into the novel. I've been writing about other aspects, but now I can write that into the novel now. Jesus, what's happening to my memory? What you were asking. Yes, the unknown. I realize more and more that what is interesting for me in writing is it's like I am writing to get in touch with, and it really feels like persons. It really feels like persons in my novel. Like, it feels like I don't really know them. I have to write to get to know them in a way, and they are me. I'm writing them, but I don't know them. So I kind of have to write to be with them, because I need to be with them, because they know something about me that I need to be in contact with, but I can have no access to that except from the writing. And I think it's like that for every one of us. I think we are so many inside, and I think we are persons inside that we don't know in a way, and that they need contact with us and we need contact with them. And I think that writing for me is this kind of act of listening to be close to those parts of myself that are unknown. And this is so, I never talk about novels that are not finished, but I'm really about to finish my new novel. And so I will talk a little bit about that. It's really strange, I've never done this before, but I will do it. And there is one of the kind of layers of that novel is a person that is a construct. It's not. But she's in Minneapolis, and I know exactly I know exactly the house she's living in Minneapolis. She's living there. And she feels so close and so distant, but she's such an important figure in the book. She's holding something in the book that even when the book is finished, she will still somehow have some kind of secret parts that I kind of still have to kind of leave her there. And then I've been thinking kind of, should I kind of take her out of the novel? But I cannot take her out of the novel because her in that greenhouse, she's staying there in that greenhouse, and that is and I've also written that in the manuscript. Maybe she is the most precise image of myself in this novel, and she is the one in the novel that is the furthest away from myself, the one I know the less about. So it's a very interesting question, your question, who do you really write for? And I think I really write for the persons inside that I do not know, but they are still me, but they are still unknown, yes. Is this really strange? Do you understand it?
Absolutely.
Yes?
What about figures like your mother or your father who are close to you that you think about in all of your novels?
Yes.
How does that relationship change? How does your aspects of them, or your view of them, or their interiors, perspective from you, how has that changed?
What do you mean by how that changed?
Let's just say your mother in real life. In the books, there's probably figures that represent your mother or part of your mother or something. Has that changed throughout the years in your work?
That changes with my way of looking upon her. But the interesting thing also it's kind of two ways. I write to change myself. I think I write really kind of because I want to. I want to explore a problem, and I want to kind of explore that problem in a way that makes it possible to be with that problem in another way. So I write to change myself. But then the writing is kind of teaching me a lot. So writing changes. I write, but then what I write changes me. But then after the book is finished, it becomes estranged. It becomes a book for everyone. It becomes it's not mine anymore. It's ours. It's yours. And it's fixed. So whatever I wrote about my mother in the book, I cannot, it's not alive anymore. I mean, you get what I mean. I mean, it's written there, and I cannot, and that is also a relief in a way, because it stays. And of course, then I can write a new book, and things have changed, and I will write about it differently in the next book because it has changed. But then the book is finished, and it becomes fixed again. So and that is also a big relief in a way, that something it's not mine anymore. It's alive and open and respiring. You know, it's and then it closes, and then it becomes an art piece. It becomes solid. It becomes, and it's not mine anymore. So I find that also a big relief that it's totally mine. It's totally open. It's like an open wound, but then it closes.
And I think that's really wonderful because in the same way that the writing process works for you, a writer, I think reading can work for those of us who don't write. So, for instance, in encountering or coming to know disavowed or parts of the self or multiple selves, I think we can find those lost selves in someone else's work. So we can have that process you arrive at through writing. I can have it spontaneously, watching a film or reading a book, and then that same repair happens within me, even though I haven't had to go through the Herculean sort of task that you've undergone in the writing process. I have a question that is about the experience with your husband during the as he was dying, and I can imagine, and I'm asking this question very selfishly because I'm always curious how people process this. Because I imagine with a lover or a partner that there's a conversation that you're having, and you imagine that conversation enduring. So, you know, you're even during the day when you're not with him, you're thinking of him and the things that you might tell him, or the things that you remember that he said, and so on. So you're kind of it's a conversation that you enter, and that gets deeper, and then you imagine that conversation going on and enduring, and then all of a sudden that conversation is suspended. But then there's still the thoughts still come, but then there's no longer the person that you're sharing them with. And it's almost like this conversation that has nowhere to go. And I just wonder what do you do now with that conversation that no longer happens with Luigi? Is it Luigi? What happens to that conversation? Sorry.
No, it's a beautiful question. I think in some way we were very much silent together. So we just enjoyed being together. It was a lot of things we never talked about. Not even death. When death came in, we didn't talk about that. But there was a lot of things we didn't talk about. And also, he was extremely kind, and sometimes I was just like, I've realized that there was a lot of things he never told me. I mean, he could have taught me a lot about about Italy and how to do things. And for instance, in Italy, they can come and ring on your door and make you sign for a new kind of electrical deal with another company. And I didn't know those things. I was Norwegian, and they'd never come and call on the door in Norway. And that would, and now I've learned you should never open and you should never sign. But I really made a mess, and that poor guy, he had to phone these things and say, fix up and say, and tear all these contracts that I have been signed because they have told me something, and I thought, okay, I will take care of this. He's in the office. I will, do something useful. And then I just made a mess of things like that. And but he would never he had his own philosophy of, he would never correct me in any way. And that is also kind of, sometimes I wonder, what was he really thinking about me? What was he thinking? I was doing all these strange things. Yes, for instance, all this, so it was a lot of things that we never talked about. So I've kind of, sometimes I'm kind of asking myself, what was, in a way, it's also sad, because what was he really thinking? But he loved me so much. So I think he was fine with it in some way. But
now you have conversations in your head with him?
No, I don't. And I was coming to that. So when he, no, thank you. But when, since we could not talk about death, there was kind of so many things that slowly kind of silenced, because the biggest thing was, we couldn't talk about the biggest, most painful thing. So if we couldn't talk about that, there was no use in talking. That was the thing I really wanted to talk about. I was always waiting for him to say, Hanne, we have to talk about death, and he never did. And I'm also writing about it in the book. There's a certain scene where I think, now he's finally going to say that he was thinking about death, and then he's just say, oh, I'm thinking about the book I'm writing. No, it's 2.5 years since he died. No, it's more like, and I find that I've kind of come to kind of accept more and more that all this talking maybe is overvalued. That it's good, and that it was also good, the silence, and now I really feel his presence. He can come and sit next to me, and that is really beautiful. But he doesn't say anything. He just, it's like the feeling of his presence. He can, and it's always that he just comes and sits next to me, and it's always, it makes me cry again. But it's always such a very kind presence that says, just says, it's all fine. It's all fine. There's nothing to do. It's all fine. And then what is there more to say? And I'm really, so yeah. So I'm really grateful, and I'm so grateful for this book, He knew that I was writing it, because I brought and he was always so proud when I was writing. So I would bring my computer when we went. I was always together with him when he went to have chemo, and So during these 10 days, I would bring the computer in the hospital and everything. And he had learned Norwegian. I learned Italian, and he learned Norwegian, and he translated love to Italian also, because he liked to translate from Norwegian. So he could read Norwegian, and I'm writing about that also in the novel. I didn't want him to read what I was writing. So I would always, turn the computer. If he came up behind me, I would turn it a little bit. So, because I really didn't want him to understand that I was writing about him dying.
Do you think that if you had the conversations with him that you really were sort of desperate to have, that you wouldn't have written the book? Is it possible that the silence that you had is really what, gave rise to the book?
who knows? Who knows? But then I guess we would have talked about it long before. I would say two things. First, I would just, then I will come back to you. The only thing is that when I sent it to my publisher, and we were planning it would come out, and I said, we just have to wait until he dies. I don't want it to come out before he dies, because I don't want him to read it. But then she sent me this is the Norwegian cover, and she sent it to me, and one day I showed it, we were having breakfast in the sofa, and I showed it to him, and he was so happy and so proud to see the cover. And of course, he must have understood something. He was not stupid. So, but what was the other thing? Jesus, I should start to take notes. You were asking about.
If you had talked about.
Yes, now I remember what I was going to say. I think the reason I had to write this novel is a thing that I have not been talking about. I'm writing about that at the end of this novel, because what happened was that I. The fall of 2019, he died in June 2020. The fall, I had really a lot of traveling as a writer. It was just before COVID, so it was still this kind of, the world was open and airplanes were going everywhere. So I traveled a lot, and he would travel with me whenever he could and was well enough. But then the last travel I was going to have was that I was going to the book fair in Guadalajara in Mexico, and that was the last thing. It was in the beginning of December, and as I'm writing in the book, I just had hand luggage with me, because then I wouldn't have to wait for the luggage when I came back, because I just wanted to run out and be with him. And what happened in Mexico was that I met a man. I met a man who was my host on this from the university in Guadalajara. They arranged this book fair, and he was my host. Nothing happened, like we didn't kiss. I mean, nothing physical happened, but it was a love meeting. It was a really a deep encounter of love, in a way. Not in a way, it was. And it was so important for both of us, and we knew that, and it was kind of such an arousal. It was just like I'm writing about in the book, that my life flame had kind of adjusted together with Luigi, because we were living so close. We were sleeping in the same bed. We were living his death together, in a way. And then I went there, and in a way I fell in love, but I don't know really how to say it, because I love Luigi. I didn't want to do anything else, but it was this love meeting. It was just like love was kind of just saying, there is love in the world. It exists. Love is possible. Love is everywhere. Love. We are living from love, in a way. And it was such a strong meeting, and it was also extremely physical. I mean, I was so aroused for 1.5 years. I mean, after he was ill, we didn't make love anymore. I mean, nothing functioned in his body anymore. So it was hard to kind of even hug him, because he had this electrical port in his. It was hard to kind of. I was always afraid to hurt him if I would, hug him. So it was, all the physical thing was away. And then I met this person, and he was beautiful. And of course I was around. I mean, I would have wanted to make love to him. It would have, that was kind of part of. It was also a very physical. Love is physical. We are bodies. This is where we feel. So it was also a very kind of physical meeting. So all these intense feelings that I had inside, and I told him about Luigi, and we did nothing else than just walk around and be together and be silent together. hardly talked even, but there was a really strong and deep connection between us. And I went back and I said, and I think, and it was so painful to come back to Luigi because after having this explosion of emotion and love in my body, and that made me really feel the gap between our life intensities were so big. And I think what I would call, again with a word from Jung, the friction of the difference of those two energies made this book necessary. That was what made me start to write the book. It was not only that I needed a place to go, because I was I was so low. I didn't know how to have to write a book. To write a book, you need an energy that comes from it. To write a book, it's almost kind of needs the energy of falling in love or something. It needs just kind of, because nobody wants it. Nobody's asking you for a book. I mean, you have to put it out in the world like. So I think that was what made the book necessary. What was the meeting with him, and so that kind of gave me the energy and the necessity to write it.
When you meet him too, this man you refer to as A, you say our talking feels too light in a way, like something that can only float on top of what's really there.
Mm.
That seemed parallel with your relationship with Luigi, that the relationship was really in the negative space. It was sort of defined by what was not being said.
Mm.
And I feel like the book is saying it, was saying all of what was not said.
Mm. Yes, maybe. And also, I don't really like to talk. No, because I always feel helpless, and I feel that I never get to say what I really want to say. So in a way, I'm a very careless speaker. I can say anything because I don't really care, because it's never what I want to say anyway. So I just say something, and I hope that it will be approximately somewhere close to it. But when I write, I really feel that I can say what I want to say. So I think that because I don't have to say, because literature is images. It's not words. It is words too, but it is words as images, and images are rich. You can go into an image and you can stay, and you can be there as a body. You can live the image, but the words, all the things that just go to the head, they just drain. They don't affect what is really the important thing.
I don't think that's all writing. I was actually describing your writing recently to someone, and that's exactly, well, I didn't use that exact word, but that's how I described it. I was trying to convey the richness of it. I was like, but every sentence it just gives rise to image after image after image. In other words, there's something in your writing that, I don't want to compare it to the Bible, but it's a little bit like that. In other words, you read those same stories over and over and over, and they just keep giving rise to new thoughts and new ideas and something. And your work is very like that. There's this richness to it.
And melody too, and rhythm and melody as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I don't know if that's all writing. There is something.
That's very beautifully said. Thank you.
And I think that's why you can get away with those short books, because there's so much there. Yeah.
Thank you. That's beautiful. And also what you said, Jill, the rhythm and I think all the qualities that are more tactile about, and the images and what you can live. I think I want to live life. I want literature to be a place that can be shared as life. I want it to be felt and not thought. And I think also that's also why I get really tired by talking and being with people and talking. I've been really kind of scared of all this, because we have all this driving. I was just like, before getting up. What will we do, and how will we be able to? And we will talk so much. How will I survive? And we're doing very well.
I feel like we're so in sync now. When you said that you forgot what you were going to say, I was about to say Mexico.
Yes, but you're right about this. That all I think, and I think this really kind of I enjoy so much, and I also think that is what I like so much about my publishing house in Norway. They are really social, and they have all these parties for the writers, and I love to be together with the other writers in Norway, because we never talk about serious things. We always just have fun, and that is wonderful, and that's what I want to do with other people. I mean, all this talking and talking, where does it bring us? Yeah.
Can I
Yeah,
ask? Sorry
of course.
to keep
Come
talking,
on.
but, you had mentioned earlier that when you write something, you see it as working on a problem, and you're grateful for the experience of writing. It helps you to approach a problem that maybe is related to you or an unknown part of yourself, and then when the book is finished, you can sort of set it aside and it feels kind of fixed. But I'm wondering if you feel that same way about this book. Does it feel like it's a problem that you fixed and that now it's done? I mean, I'm guessing that because you had and still have this deep love that you lost but still lives in you. I'm just wondering what your relationship is to this work now. Does it feel like, I know it feels like a relief, you described it that way, that makes sense to me. But is this something that you can set aside as a problem that was fixed in a way that you can your other work?
Then I have not been precise enough, because that is not how I feel about the other books either. They're not like problems and then I fix them by written. Okay. No. Every book is. I think what helps me with the books and what changes me in writing them is being there. And writing a book. It takes like this took 10 days, but normally it takes at least a year. So and that is just the writing process, and then is the process before writing that takes one or 2 years before I start. The writing is, to me, often very quick, but it has a long pre-work phase that to me is also part of the writing, but it's not the outwriting part. So to me, kind of, what the books are doing to me is that they give me a place to be and to live with. And it's not really a problem, but it's more like a question or something I need to investigate. I need to be with that thing as a novel, in the novel, as in the writing. I have to be there in the writing, because of this quality, I think, of being both with myself and with the unknown. So I need to be there in that way. And I think I'm really grateful for this book, because I think most of all because, and now I'm crying again. Most of all because it is a document of my love for Luigi. It's a document over what we shared. And it will always be there. And I'm grateful for that. So and it will always be there, and it's strange also because I will change, and even already know my attitude to things I did that when I wrote this book, for instance, were so obvious to me. Now I have already changed. Like the New Year party that Luigi wanted us to have. We went out of the hospital, you know, the day before New Year's Eve, and he wanted us to proceed, and he wanted us to have this New Year party. And I was furious. I wasn't furious, but I thought it was. It's our last New Year Eve, and you want us to have a party for strangers. What are we doing here? You are dying. Can we talk about that, or are we going to send up rockets and, you know, think that, you know, having a party for it's nothing to have a party about. But now 2.5 years, I have changed. Now, if he had asked me, I want to have a New Year party, I would have said yes. Let's make the most beautiful New Year party ever. Let's make it a wonderful party. But I was not able to do that at that time. So I'm changing. So it's also a document. It's not only a document about him. It's also a document about who we were and who I was, and now I've changed, and that's just how it is. But I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
Shall we wrap up there?
I think so.
Retire to signings and some more speaking.
But thank you.